Welcome back to Coffee and Conversions, presented by Focus USA, hosted today by Giovanni Agency. Welcome back, everyone, Coffee Insiders. If you are new to Coffee and Conversions, let me tell you a little bit about what it's about. Coffee Conversions is an online content platform that provides content for marketers, by marketers. We host this event probably 3 or 4 times a year, and today might look a little bit different. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I leveraged the Coffee Insider network, we are here at the Giovanni Agency, where they have built a beautiful, beautiful studio for us to bring today's live event to you, live broadcast. It is Studio G340. Guys, if you want to get a tour of this amazing studio, I highly recommend it. Details for that are up on your screen right now. And now we are going to dive in. I'm going to introduce our guest. So today we are very lucky to have our co-host Jacqueline Jones from Giovanni Agency and our awesome guest speaker Andrew Barbuto from Basis Technologies. Thank you guys for coming today.
Of course. Thank you for inviting us.
Awesome. So we're going to be talking a little bit today about connected TV. Now, guys, this is a 4-part series, our Connected TV Unplugged series. But today we're going to be talking about navigating the complex landscape of connected TV. And I couldn't think of better guests to have than the agency lady herself, Jacqueline Jones, Andrew Barbuto, Basis Technologies, wonderful DSP. I'm a client. Everybody should be. And then my side is Data from Focus USA. So again, if you guys don't know me, Meg Ugenti with Focus USA. I'm the Corporate Sales and Marketing Director at the company. We handle all of your data and audience needs. So let's dive in. Jackie, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Giovanni?
Yes. So my name is Jacqueline Jones. I am the Digital Marketing Director here at Giovanni. Giovanni is a full-service agency. We work on all media types from traditional to digital, and I'm more on the digital side. We also have a creative studio in-house and an awesome video team in-house that meets all of our clients' needs on video production and creative work. And we work closely with our clients as well. But I do want to say, though, this is extra special for me. I was on Coffee and Conversions. I was on the other side of the screen. So now being up here is really special, and just being in our new live studio for everyone. So if you guys are interested in it, please check it out.
Yes, this is awesome. I cannot say I did not hire a team of minions to go behind the screen and make all of this happen. The wonderful team at Giovanni Agency is making us all look really great today. So thanks, team. Andrew, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so first off, thanks for having me. This is really a beautiful studio. Super impressed by it. Clearly, you guys did a lot of work.
Not me. I did not do it. I did not do anything.
Seems like a lot of work. But yeah, so my name is Andrew Barbuto. I am a senior agency lead at Basis Technologies. And as you mentioned, I work with both of you guys. Been at Basis for a little over 4 years now, but I've been working in programmatic since I graduated for almost 10 years now, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Time flies. But one of the areas that I've spent a lot of time in the last few years, which is, in my opinion, like the biggest opportunity that exists right now for agencies and advertisers, is with Connect TV. So when you guys mentioned that you were going to speak about this topic today, I was really excited about it because it's what everybody's talking about.
Yes, that's why we had to split this event up into 4 different parts, right? Like today is going to be about navigating the landscape. You guys are the perfect people to shepherd us through this. I'm really excited to get into it. Connected TV, there are so many conversations around it. It is like the channel in marketing right now. What is it? Why is everybody so hyped about it? Can I have the experts please explain?
You want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. So connected TV is simply internet connected television. So rather than accessing your content through a cable box or through broadcast, you're just accessing it through the internet. And so why people are really excited about it right now, and why I said it's the biggest opportunity in my opinion, is because historically the biggest, at least for the last 30 or so years, the biggest marketing channel has been TV. And it's also captures the most amount of dollars. And so what we're seeing is a serious shift, especially over the last decade, of people, especially younger people, but really every age it's happening with, is cutting the cord and canceling their cable and using streaming. I mean, I personally, that's what I use. I'm sure a lot of people out there can relate to it. But in terms of the opportunity for advertisers, it's a great way for advertisers who have historically not been able to access the TV screen because it's expensive, to be able to utilize the same, in many cases, digital assets. And you're now able to access the TV screen. So you're able to get access to the most effective marketing channel. And then, for the ecosystem, it's also capturing the most amount of dollars. So I know we'll get into some of the specifics.
Oh, yeah. We've got some stats for you guys coming up shortly.
So I think, too, basing off of Andrew's, what we're going to talk about is with linear TV and how it has, how CTV has grown tremendously over the past few years compared to linear and where those stats are today, as well as who is in the market for this, of who is our streaming services, and more in detail of that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, connected TV, I don't know about you guys. I cut the cord a year ago. I haven't looked back. There's so many options that are going on right now. I'm sure our audience has the same, point of view. I've had conversations over and over again about it. But speaking of connected TV, if you guys are new to connected TV, we do have a glossary for you. So that should be shared in the chat here shortly. If you need to reference any of the terms that we're going to be using throughout the program, please make sure to check it out. So as we dig into it, guys, so we talked about some of the stats earlier. So eMarketer is actually projecting that connected TV spend is going to reach over $25.09 billion with the B dollars by the end of this year.
Yeah.
2023, this year. And then 4 years from now, by the end of 2027, they're projecting $40 billion in spend. I don't know about you, but I love that growth curve. And it continues to eat into the budgets for linear TV spends. So as we dig into that more, for both of you guys, who are the players? Who are the players in connected TV? Who do we need to be paying attention to?
Right. It's all a lot of the big brands out there that we're familiar with. Hulu, Paramount, Disney Plus, Apple. I think those are key players in this for what's to come in the streaming. So I know everyone has the new chart up there from July 2023, where we can really break down of who are the players on it, and you can really see where streaming is as of July 2023 and where broadcast and cable are. So streaming has surpassed that for the first time, which is really exciting.
Yeah, we're here.
We're here, and it's going to continue to grow.
And I would just add to that. I mean, you mentioned $40 billion by 2027.
Yeah.
I think that actually might be an understatement. We might be underestimating the amount because of how much it's grown in the last few years and how fast cable is shrinking in terms of viewership. And what is going to accelerate the ad spend, in my opinion, is the new services that are being released with ads for the first time, right? So historically, Netflix has been the biggest and also the first streaming service that was available to all of us.
The original.
Yeah, they put it on the map.
Yeah, a little bit.
But and when they did, it was always, we're never going to have advertising, right? It was that was a big part of the value proposition. And so when you see last year them for the first time saying, actually, we're going to have advertising, and the reasoning behind it is because they need to continue to grow the revenue. That was really the last shoe to drop because everybody follows the leader. So now you have Disney Plus. They're always going to come out with advertising. But those two are really just got started as of 2022. Yeah. So that creates a huge opportunity. Also, there's a lot of trends that the big players, what we saw on the screen right there was a breakdown of their market share. And you'll still see that cable and broadcast take up a lot of the overall viewership still, right? It just fell below 50% in terms of the total TV viewership.
Wow.
For the first time.
Yeah.
But what you see is, although that streaming is capturing 40% of attention, so viewership time overall, they're only capturing about 23, 25% in terms of ad-supported viewership time. And the reason for that is because of historically Netflix hasn't had ads.
Yeah.
And so also they start out with lower ad load, so less ads than in cable or broadcast that you'd be used to, something that people are attracted to. But as more and more consumers do sign up for those ad-supported tiers, and we'll get into it, but Netflix cracking down on password sharing.
Oh, I was just about to ask you about that. Yeah.
Shout out Netflix.
Who's not able to use their in-laws' Netflix password anymore, right?
I just switched like a few months ago.
Yeah,
Got
it's
me.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. Want to finish the rest of Love is Blind, but
Right.
Got to
Have to wait
create your
till
own
next time.
account.
If only. If only.
Well, to your point, right? Create your own account. Well, am I going to spend $20 a month if they all do it?
Yeah.
Right? That starts adding up. So the cheapest tier for Netflix is $6.99, I believe. Mm-hmm. That's much more affordable for people, and there's a reason for that. They want people to use their ad-supported version. They want to migrate people from their historical subscription-based because it's more profitable for them.
Yeah.
And so they generate more revenue from it. And that's why they're cracking down on password sharing. And that's the reason why they're increasing pricing for their top tier. And they're purposely trying to push people to their cheapest ad support tier. And that's not just Netflix. Disney's doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. They're all going to start doing it, unfortunately.
Right. I'm sure. Well, like you said, follow the leader. That's what you said earlier.
Exactly.
It's one of those things where you see, I don't know when you guys started with these streaming services, but I feel like that was the entry price, right? That $6.99, $7.99 a month was the entry price, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. And as we've seen these audiences really embrace streaming and, on-demand TV services, and this is where the shows are, like, right. It's not like, oh, it's 10 o'clock, let's sit down for a show. It's let me watch it whenever I want. Yep. This will be on demand, by the way. Just letting you guys know.
We're streaming?
It was streaming live and on demand. But one of the other things we were going to talk about so talk to me a little bit more about how it works, right? So we talked about like who the players are. We talked about kind of what connected TV is. Can you kind of connect the two for me and like the mechanics a little bit more?
Do you want to take that or you want me to take it?
You could take it.
I'll tee you up.
Okay. There you go. How
it works. So not to, I don't want to jump ahead because I think that we're going to be talking a bit about OTT.
Yes.
But it's hard not to talk about OTT when you want to talk about how it works.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
OTT, connected TV.
What is OTT and what is CTV? How would you plan it differently?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. And, it is, right, it's still new, and I think people are still trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And so, the way that this ultimately ends up fitting into the overall media plan and when you might use one or the other, I don't know if it's 100% answered yet because it is so new and like it's maturing. But like from my early indications that I see is with connected TV, like I said, it's only on the TV screen. So they're both streaming typically the same content, right?
Yeah.
It's the Hulus of the world, it's Disney, it's Netflix, it's Peacock, Paramount, right? It's the same content. It's just about how and where you're consuming that content. So when we talk about OTT, it could be on your desktop, it could be on your tablet, your mobile device, whereas connected TV, we're exclusively talking about the TV screen.
It's a really good distinction.
Yep.
Right? Like the big screen versus all of your devices where you're going to be streaming that type of content on. That's awesome. So, Jackie, I have a question specifically for you.
Go for it.
The Master Media Planner.
Yes.
Is advertising on connected TV more cost effective than when buying linear TV ads?
So, yes. My straight answer is yes.
Yay.
Are they both more expensive media types? Of course. Mm-hmm. But with CTV, what is so awesome about it is that you're able to target specifically. So you could target geography, you could target specific audiences that could be in market, and different inventory shows. I'll say inventory, but it shows that you want to be on. And even you can target your first party data on there and then even retarget them. So with all of that, unlike linear, linear's casting a big net, right? You're on a specific show, but you're casting a big net onto an audience that you don't know who exactly is in your market, which with CTV, it reduces that wasted ad spend. So my answer would be yes, but also I would like to humble brag on, because we have amazing opportunities with our DSP, that even us marketers can go in and drive for better results with lower CPM and cost measures. So I think there's all different areas where it can be more cost efficient than linear.
If you know what you're doing.
If you know what you're doing.
Which is all about navigating the landscape. And that's a really good point that you made about being able to target and retarget your first-party data audiences versus a linear situation where you're depending on somebody that might be measuring their audience very differently than you. Right? So even if you're talking about first-party data, people that know you, are aware of your brand, a lot of times, a lot of people will discover new brands on TV.
Yep.
So identifying either programmatic or niche audiences that you can build custom, and then being able to reach them through the big screen, which is traditionally, you've never been able to build specific commercials for a new mover audience or for, really niched kind of custom audiences like that.
Captures the best of both worlds.
Yeah. It's
and there is a convergence both operationally and in that respect, like there really are converging. But when it comes to Connect TV, you get the best of digital. It acts like digital in the sense of how you're buying it. You can use targeting, measurement that never existed with linear TV. You really just go very broad with linear, right? You can't really necessarily measure it.
Yep.
And so you get that with Connect TV, which didn't exist in linear, but you also are, to your point, on the TV screen. And the content that people are watching, that you're putting ads in front of, are the same content that you would watch if you were watching cable.
Question, is it skippable?
It depends.
It depends, right? But you have the option, right? The same way you do with any other kind of video thing. It depends on your media spend. But, I mean, if you think about, like, streaming on Hulu or, like, where any of these things would kind of pop up, think about that audience. Like, whether you're a large brand, a big brand, an unknown brand, like, being able to say, oh, in my backyard, this car dealership, I'm ready to, like, show my ad on while I'm streaming. I don't know, what's a Hulu show? NHL right now, right?
It's a huge one.
So let's get into it. So when we talk about the convergence of this, another conversation that comes up a lot in digital media is fraud, right?
That's a big one.
So how does fraud play a role with connected TV media buying?
Yeah. So again, it captures the best of digital, but also in this case, it can capture the worst of digital, right? There's not many fraudulent TV commercials, really, unless you're talking about late night, 1-800 law stuff. But but yeah. So since it is operated the same way as digital ads, there also is fraud, just like digital ads.
Yeah.
Especially as it captures more and more dollars, right? The general consensus, I think, a few years back when it was still very, very new was, there's no fraud. But recent studies that have come out from like the likes of Double Verify and such has shown that it's not true. And some of the fraud looks like other digital fraud, right? Where there's spoofing, people are pretending they're, it's a Hulu streaming platform, but you're maybe not running on Hulu. Which is similar to them, pretending to be a different website.
Yeah.
But there's also, some that you have to be wary of that are specific to Connect TV, right? Like, you're not able to serve a digital display ad if your computer is off. Right? Some actors may have figured out how to do that. I don't know how they would, but that isn't necessarily the case when it comes to Connect TV. So there was a story that came out last year. I think Group M came out with a report which showed that a lot of people were watching these ads with the TV screen off.
Oh.
So, and what you see is really high frequency, but there's no way that someone's watching TV or streaming 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Right? And so there are ways that you can prevent it, but you do have to take measures or at least limit it to keep it under control, right? Just a few examples would be using a verification partner, right? And a big action item that we recommend and we implement ourselves is working closely with the network or the publisher, right? The content provider.
Yes.
So actually setting up deals directly with the Paramounts of the world, the Peacocks of the world. When you're talking to them on the phone, and you're setting up deals with them, and you could still execute it through programmatic channels, you're not going to be buying from someone that's pretending to be,
Yes, and you're able to put kind of those measures on those partners that where you're pushing content, right? Like being able to have that direct relationship with somebody, or have the same code that everybody needs to follow. Everybody's on the same page with what the standards should be. So for people that are getting into this for the first time, you think of TV ads and you think like big brand messaging, right? We think iconic commercials, right? Like the Coke and Pepsi wars. It just takes me back, right? But is connected TV just for big brands?
No. I mean, obviously there is spots out there where the big brands are being shown, but for smaller brands that are just trying to get into it, there are easy buy-ins or lower cost buy-ins where they can get their spot and their commercial on the CTV spot. Again, it is lower. Big brands do have the higher feed, but it is for everyone. It's not just specifically for big brands.
And that's kind of what I was getting at too, when we first started talking about how there's a lower barrier to entry.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if you guys stream a lot, you've probably seen some interesting advertisers that you wouldn't necessarily see when you're watching linear TV. You just don't expect to see it, right? Because to your point, like it's the Fortune 500 companies, it's the Fords of the world. And that is because, it's very expensive to run TV commercials. You need big budgets, and with connected TV, you could take the same assets you're running in digital. Now, there are best practices, and we could have a conversation about that. But in practice, you would be able to take the same assets that you're using, as long as they're high quality and high def, and be able to use those same assets and running it on connected TV screen. And with programmatic, with having a demand side platform, you're able to access the TV screen, so you could do it all from a piece of software and use the same video assets, and anybody can really access it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that it's more accessible,
right?
To get on the big screen nowadays than it really ever was before. And because linear doesn't have this tight grasp over the how to reach an audience through that medium, it has opened the door. I've had so many people start to ask, again, this is why we're having the conversation, right? It's becoming more accessible to people that haven't been able to do this before.
Right.
But for, again, people that are trying to figure this out for the first time, it's very complex because it's shifting and it's new. We talked about Netflix coming in as a big player, Disney coming in as a big player. It's shifting kind of the world of connected TV, which is already pretty new. And it has created a lot of fragmentation, right? So there are so many different streaming services available, so many different platforms that are available nowadays. And that comes with its own set of pros and cons, right? The pros are being able to really build a really custom media mix, right? Being able to really hone in and identify, pair your data with your media, and having a lot of control over that. But if you don't know what you're doing, it can be a mess.
It can be a big mess.
It can be a mess.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah. It's very overwhelming.
It's very overwhelming. And I think it's going to continue to get more complex as things start to settle in. So when people are starting to really kind of get into this, I definitely recommend reaching out to these guys because they're excellent experts. But, one of the other questions that I really have is for Jackie. Like, in your experience, how can brands actually create more of a cohesive and memorable presence in the connected TV landscape, but also kind of keeping their messaging on track?
Right. And I think the key word is like messaging, right? You need to develop your brand's voice and messaging before you need to have a clear message. You need to have a clear brand voice and clear guidelines. For when it comes to CTV, that is top of the funnel. So that's brand awareness of getting people to recognize your brand, right? So CTV, sight, sound, motion, you want to create that emotion for the client or the consumer to recognize your brand and associate them with a certain message or even sound that gets them to say, oh, I know who this was. And then that way down the line, you have your message. And when it works it down in the funnel, your messaging can be more aggressive on getting them to convert for your store or wherever.
Yeah. It's, if you think about to any of the commercials, because commercials, it's like this art form, right? And because it's becoming more accessible to people to be able to do this, they're getting ready to do it for the first time. You just kind of keep going back to that emotional connection. Those are the ones that you're going to remember.
Right.
And you're going to reflect on that brand. And then that gets reinforced, as you get lower in the funnel of that whole thing. But we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but Connected TV offers a lot of this measurability to really show that as well. But again, there's so much. There's so many ways to get that message out there.
Right.
For Andrew, how are streaming services actually combating fragmentation right now? And do you think we'll see a lot of consolidation? Do you think we'll see acquisitions?
Yeah. So I mean, just to add to what you said about the creative, with the creative messaging, historically, you mentioned some commercials you remember from growing up and stuff like that, right? That is what the benefits you get by being on the TV screen, is being able to, there's no other channel that can replace that. It's the biggest screen. You're typically in a lean back, living room situation. A lot of times you're watching with other people. And so that art is still a very important part of the success of these ads, right? Just because anybody can run doesn't mean that, and it's cheaper, doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't still put the same amount of effort into the creative messaging that you make to be able to get that brand recall and stuff. Because it's still difficult to capture people's attention. And that's where you guys are really good at, is building that really memorable creative messaging.
Right.
What you asked me about before is what I think that most people consider to be the most challenging part of connected TV, which is the fragmentation part about it.
Yeah.
Super complex, right? We just mentioned a few, but what we've spoke about so far is only really one form of streaming. We've talked about what is considered, ad-supported video on demand, which is the Netflix of the world, or when there's no ads, then it's subscription-based video on demand. Those are the individual apps. The Netflix, the Peacocks, the Paramounts, Max. But there's also, the MVPDs or skinny bundles, which is essentially cable streamed through the internet. So for example, for myself, I have DirecTV Stream, which is how I get access to a bundle of channels, including live sports. Right. And it's much more like traditional cable, except it's streamed through the internet. And, I mentioned one DirecTV Stream, but there's also YouTube TV, Hulu plus Live TV,
yes,
as well as Sling. And again, it gets even more complex, right? Because then you get into the free channels. So like what is an acronym, it's called FAST, so free ad-supported, I forget what the rest of it is.
Yeah, but like the freebies and
exactly.
all of those guys,
Yeah, so like the Tubies of the world, right? And, then you have the big tech that are getting into it, right? You have Amazon with Prime Video, just recently came out that they're going to be also including ads in the beginning of next year.
Of course they are.
It's for, if you want to keep it without ads, it's an extra $3 a month.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're going to start seeing ads. And that's a trend that we talked about earlier, which is the reasoning behind it is to make more money, and everyone's following the leader. When Netflix had no ads, you didn't have to worry about it. But then you have, after that, now we're talking about like traditional cable providers, right? You have like the Comcast of the world, the Xfinities. They also have their own streaming services. And we're just talking about content. Then you have the actual device, connected TV enabled devices, right? So the Rokus of the world.
Yes.
You have Roku enabled TV. Fire Sticks, Chromecast, right? Smart TVs. And what's complex about it, and what makes it a challenge, is that as a media buyer, you can access the same content in a number of different ways, right? You can go to Roku directly. You can go to a Peacock. You can access it through a platform like ours, through the Open Exchange, or through accessing it, through programmatic guarantee with a direct buyer. So there's a lot of different ways, right? And it makes it challenging. And so the approach that we've taken at Basis is to just partner with all of them, right? So we set up private marketplace deals. We have a curated list of now over 1,400. It started at the year, I think it was like 400.
Awesome.
So just to give you an idea as to like how much it's growing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why, again, when people are kind of getting into this, they're choosing a technology partner. Great. But do you need more than just a technology partner to be able to access a lot of these things, right? It's, You really need to
Yes.
be either really train and educate your in-house marketing staff, or you really
Right.
need to be able to partner with people that are doing this day in and day out and really understand the intricacies behind it. It continues to evolve. It's getting the fragmentation. I think, from my personal viewpoint, I think it is going to continue to grow before it does consolidate.
Yep.
So one point on that though, because you asked about the consolidation.
Yeah.
Some of the streaming services that I've mentioned have already consolidated. Right?
Okay.
So there used to be HBO Max and Discovery Plus.
Yes.
Now it's just Max.
Yep.
Right. You see Paramount has combined with Showtime if you want to get the most premium version.
I did it. I got the promo.
You got
I
it?
subscribed. Yes, I did.
Disney, right? Disney Plus owns. They're going to be closing in on the acquisition if they haven't already. They were supposed to buy September 30th. They're going to be buying it from Comcast, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So buying Hulu, so that way it's under the same umbrella as the Disney Plus, and also they own ESPN Plus. So what they've taken is a different approach than just combining it into one super app, like what HBO did. They've bundled it.
Which makes it a better experience for consumers too, right? And another way to kind of marry those audiences in one data set.
Yes. And I feel like, too, with all of these streaming platforms, there's content everywhere, right? And with them consolidating it, I think they're working extra hard to keep the content on their platforms and keep it going for the consumers so that they stay with them. That way, when it all starts to, I guess, mark their territory and consolidate, and the big brands are on top, that they have an inventory of where the consumer can watch all of their shows and TV shows in one library.
It's a better experience, right? Like, for me, we had HBO and we had Discovery Plus, and now we don't need Discovery Plus.
Yeah.
Because we have all the same content in one app. So that's how they're differentiating from one another. And what you see is, there's some winners that are coming, which is the same ones that were in cable, right? HBO, Netflix is obviously direct to streaming, but Disney, those are the same guys. CBS, now Viacom, then Paramount, and then NBC, they came out with their own. Right, so all of these major cable networks that have historically been cable networks have come out with their own streaming services. They've consolidated all of their content within their streaming service. So any NBC content that was on Hulu, that will eventually go away once Disney owns it 100%, which will be soon. But it's so that they can better compete with each other and offer a better consumer experience.
Right. So that they can start serving ads. Right?
Serving ads.
So speaking of, the example of the consumer perspective, do you guys have real world case study examples of brands that have successfully navigated these challenges through connected TV, and specifically the fragmentation of connected TV? Jackie, you want to go first?
I do. I'll take it. So I had this one client. He was always on linear TV. And it was a few years ago, CTV. He wanted to be on CTV. So we did, it wasn't a few years ago, it was last year. But we started the campaign, and we saw new numbers, we saw growth, but we weren't tackling what we wanted to. So we regrouped, and we were talking, and we said, what do we want out of this? Where do we want to go? So it ended up being that he wanted a new geography that he wasn't tapping into on linear. So we redid our campaign. We added these geography points, and what we did was only add in the Hulu of the world and the premium marketplaces where he was on the big screen and running on that. That went live, the campaign, and a few weeks later, I get a call, and he's saying that he's getting foot traffic in his store that from the geography that he wanted to target, that he hasn't been able to tap into before. So that was one way. Sometimes you do have to regroup and really see, what are we trying to get here, and what is your goal? What do you want to see out of this? Because CTV offers this type of targeting, and we can do it. We just want to make sure,
That's a great point. I think with connected TV, with any marketing channel, with any media plan, understand what you're trying to accomplish, who is your audience, how are you measuring that, and then you talk about how to get that message out there. And connected TV sounds like was a
Perfect play.
Perfect play. Awesome. So, Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice when you can bridge the real world with digital.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, yes. So connected TV and linear in general, right? It used to be, for anyone who has historically done traditional TV, everyone knows it works. They know that, they put TV commercials on and their sales go up. But because of what's happened to traditional TV over the last 5 years, 10 years, where it's gotten to an inflection point where, especially with younger people, and we see a drop off, particularly 55 plus, there are people 55 plus, the numbers show that they're still largely watching TV, linear TV, and then anything under that, you see a major drop off. And so one of my clients has historically been a traditional TV buyer. And then once all this happened, their hand was forced. They're like, well, we're missing out on a large percentage of our audience now because of all the cord cutters and the cord nevers who we used to be able to watch. But then they started dealing with the same issue that we just were talking about earlier, which is the fragmentation. And it's super complex because you have all of these different ways that you can buy it, and it gets very overwhelming.
Yep.
And so how do you reach the same type of scale that you were previously getting with your linear TV buy in a super fragmented environment?
Good point.
And so what we did was, exactly as I mentioned earlier, right? We partner with all of these major streaming services. So that way the agency or the client, you don't have to go out and cut all of these deals. We have a team that goes out and does that for you and negotiates, really strong prices for private marketplace deals and stuff like that. But it takes work, right? So we have a full team which is regularly talking to these network partners all the time. It also takes work to compile that sort of reporting across all of the different services. So long story short, what we did was we built a plan where we took their networks that they're buying on TV and we duplicated it in a connected TV environment, and we layered on cord cutter targeting. So that way we're only reaching people that they can't reach with their linear TV buy to extend the reach and reach that audience that, again, that they're missing out on. And our team, which is really great, was able to build the type of features within our platform, which allows our analysts to compile all of the different reports from all of these different networks and provide one cohesive report across all of them. Some stuff is still very manual. If you ever want show level reporting, right? A lot of times linear TV buyers are expecting that sort of transparency. That requires working directly with the network, but we do. And that's like the service that we offer in addition to the software that is what enables the buy.
Yeah, so you guys are trying to make it really easy to take people that have traditionally bought linear, having a really good buying experience through like a programmatic connected TV.
Yeah, making
landscape.
it more simplified.
Yeah.
To get the type of scale and building strategy based on what the goal of the campaign is, like you talked about earlier.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think what I'm hearing from both you and Jackie, the best strategies when trying to identify or combat fragmentation within this in real world environments is, number one, understanding your audience, knowing your data, identifying what problem you're trying to solve, and then making it an easy transition for people that are used to buying something one way, buying it a different way. And then also, I guess the other part we haven't talked about is educating, which we're doing now. Here we are. Educating audiences that haven't necessarily are experiencing this for the first time, right? So this is just awesome, guys. So for us, Andrew, specifically for you, so as the platforms continue to expand, and we talked about how, the different platforms are consolidating, Paramount and Showtime and things like that. How are they really going to safeguard the consumer experience?
Yeah, that's a really great question.
Yeah.
I think that's something that it actually hasn't. There are, if you experience your own streaming experience, I'm sure there's been those cases where you've seen the same ad 15 times in a row.
Yep.
Right? And, there are technical reasons why that has historically been an issue when it comes to frequency capping. Has to do with, the behind the scenes stuff as to how it's actually executed and how there's a lot of silos built into it, right? But one of the benefits of connected TV compared to linear cable is that there hasn't been as high of an ad load, right? So with even today, Connect TV has usually between 3 and 7 minutes worth of ads per hour, whereas with cable, you're seeing 14 minutes.
Yeah.
And so how you would limit or protect the consumer, as you say, would be to continue to, use a frequency cap. In terms of frequency cap, there was a report that recently came out, I think it was like Magnite and Roku, that basically they did some analysis and they saw that a lot of advertisers were serving too many ads. And one of the recommendations was to spread the campaign out and look at it on a month-to-month basis.
So spread out the timeline
of the campaign.
Okay.
So like if you're serving 15 ads per week, right? Maybe do it per month. So that way you're not annoying the consumer. On the buyer side, you can implement a frequency cap.
Yep.
And on the streaming side, the networks continuing to, not go crazy with the ad load. Let's not like make the same mistakes that were made during cable's heyday, which I think that, we'll get to like what's coming next, but unfortunately, unlikely to stay as low as it is currently.
Do you know what the best thing that has been implemented by these platforms and services from streaming, from my perspective, is that timer? Like, I know I have this many more ads I've got to get to before my my
like
content starts.
1 out of 5.
But
That's helpful.
It is. It's such like a human thing, and I think the human experience and how everybody is consuming media is changing, right? And we have these generations that are consuming a lot of the same content now, and we're seeing. From my perspective, I think we're seeing a lot of overlap.
Yes.
In the responses that we're getting cross-generationally through these channels as well. So, okay, now we're going to dive into the future, like Andrew alluded to, of connected TV, and specifically about how to choose the right partners as you start to move forward in this process, right? So I'm going to say it again: 2027, 40 billion. Andrew thinks more. What's your number?
Probably 50.
50, like $50 billion.
Yeah, well, because you see linear, the projections are for it to go from I think that's like 61 right now, billion dollars. Something along that's probably not accurate, but it's like in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Just down to 56. I think that's also an underestimation.
Yeah.
Because the way that you're seeing how fast it's shrinking, it's shrinking faster than that. So those dollars, there was surveys that went out, and like where Connect TV dollars primarily coming from, it shifts from linear.
So that's a definite signal to people that are buying traditional linear TV ads right now to let's get into the CTV game and make your stamp there. So Jackie, for you, so given the fragmentation of connected TV and that landscape, what are some of the tips that you actually give brands and advertisers in terms of selecting the right connected TV partners? And that could be data partners, agency partners, technology partners.
So anyone that really comes to me, I know that I do have the right set, but of partners that I work with that help me combat any fragmentation or any struggles that a campaign might have when reaching the audience or the goals. But when it comes to choosing the right person, I think that with marketing constantly trying to evolve, and it will always, but having, I think CTV, what's unique about it now unlike linear is the insights and the data and the analytics that we get back to update the campaign. So having that under our belt will help with, okay, what format should we change to? Or what else should we do? What should we add? What should we remove? I think that's really helpful with it. But I think constantly looking at the CTV analytics and the insights and the data that continues to come out and the new numbers from these big brands will help base the marketing strategy on these CTV campaigns, which helps them drive to their results.
Which is, again, like you're able to update these things in real time as you're optimizing, which is
huge.
A huge advantage from the people that are actually implementing this media plan.
I would just add to that, because I think that you made an interesting perspective in the sense that like you're looking at the numbers regularly, right? So what you're looking at is like the individual networks, how it's performing. And so that's like from the agency's perspective, that's what you're really focused on, is like taking a look and seeing how the numbers are looking, and then obviously, the client should be looking at that as well. I would answer the question from a different sort of perspective, coming from a technology company, and I'm sure we all get a lot of outreach from random companies that are the next big thing in terms of connected TV.
Oh yeah.
May or may not have ever heard of them before. Doesn't mean they're not a good company. But one of the things that I look for when that happens is, how close are you to the actual content? We want to work with NBC. They're the ones who own the content, right? We want to work with them for a number of reasons: cutting out the middleman, being able to have more control over your campaign, more transparency. They're the type of, they can provide program level data that no one else can. That also is a way that you could pretty much get rid of the spoofing and running on places that you think you're running but you're not running. So that would be a question that I would pose to anybody who is trying to figure out who you should work with in the Connect TV space. How direct are your relationships with the actual people that are creating the content? You want as clear of a path to that as possible for all those reasons. And if anybody is saying, hey, we have an exclusive relationship with Paramount, unless you're at Paramount,
right. Are you working at Paramount? Are you on the desk at Paramount?
Exactly. Yeah, nobody, they don't have exclusive relationships like that.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. So again, which goes back to the point that we made about preventing ad fraud and things like that, which is why, again, we all love Basis Technology. Just shout out Basis Technologies. So, as we get back into it, because I do want to leave some time for Q&A, but I do have a couple of more questions for you guys. The media industry is, again, evolving rapidly, like everything does in digital media, which is why we are all employed.
For now.
For now. We'll get into the AI conversation in a different. That's a different episode, guys. But how do you stay in the know? Like, you guys are in the know.
In the know. I mean, I lean on heavily different webinars. I mean, Basis, Andrew specifically.
Coffee and conversion.
Yeah. Coffee and conversions is one webinar, yes. And Basis, like, you guys are constantly putting out new data and everything, and all these different measurements, and even for myself that works directly in there, getting all those new deals. Having to know all of that, I can go to the client and say, great, this is so awesome. We have a new deal that we can target your audience on. So mainly all of that. And then obviously you have your eMarketer and your Nielsen that you rely on.
Yeah. What about you? What are your secrets?
Yeah. So I mean, it really, it's hard to overstate how rapid that this particular media is changing, right? I just looking at my numbers that I was put together, documents and
Andrew's
insights
our stat guy, by the way.
I just gather, because it's overwhelming, right? Like, there's so much you hear, you don't know how to put it together. But just to answer questions regarding what sources, eMarketer is a great one. I get eMarketer sent to me every day. It's how I start my morning.
Same.
Yeah, it's really, really, they do a lot of the legwork.
Yep.
But the trades, of course, Ad Exchanger, Media Post, Ad Week, Ad Age, DigiDay, there's a lot. And so that's why I try to take the legwork of reading them as much as I can and gathering it and try to make one cohesive document of all the most important stats, because there's a lot of noise out there and a lot of stuff that people are just trying to you just have to weed through that to be able to get to the actual legitimate, hey, this is what's going on. You're not going to be able to fake your earnings numbers.
Yes.
In your earnings, all these streaming services have to put out how many subscribers either gained or lost. That numbers don't lie, right? So stuff like that.
Trust but verify.
Yeah, there's two sides to this, right? There's you're asking me, how do I stay up to date? And then there's what you mentioned earlier, which is how does the company stay up to date when it comes to partnerships with these networks? And those are two separate questions. We have a partnerships team. I'll answer the first one around how I do, and I already kind of answered it. In addition to the trades and eMarketer, we also have this really great training program. It's called AdTech Filter. I think it's called AdTech Academy. Sorry. And what it does, it's free. Anybody can take it. You don't have to be a client. It does everything from digital 101 to advanced connected TV strategies. And for Basis clients in particular, there are certification programs. And even though I don't use Basis on a daily basis for buying, I use it for other reasons. I wanted to take that sort of training because it's really helpful to get inside of a DSP and understand how it actually works logically,
Yes.
how much work actually goes into setting these campaigns up. Now, I just took a training and it was a mock campaign, and it took me like an hour.
I
Did you
saw
call
your
Jackie?
certification. He got certified. I saw it.
I did. I was certified. Yeah.
So when do we go through the recertification process?
No, they're always coming out with new.
Because again, it
courses.
changes so fast.
Yeah.
So like, again, this is just why it's great to have friends that are experts, and we just again really appreciate you guys coming to the couch. Not a therapy session, but we did go deep. So my last question for you guys before we get into Q&A: what do you think the immediate, and by what I mean by immediate future is like the next 3 months? What do you think the next 3 months looks like for linear TV, and then connected TV in comparison?
Right. I mean, obviously connected TV is going to continue to grow, but with them side by side, I think it's going to remain almost as a hybrid model. Linear isn't going to drop off the face of this earth.
Not in the next
Maybe.
3 months. Not in the next 3 months, probably.
Yeah, not in the next 3 months. So I think that with everybody joining forces on the platform side of the big brands, I think that linear TV is still going to be part of it in the hybrid, obviously, version. Connected TV will continue to grow and figure out where its place.
And I think that, a good example of that, and I agree with you, actually. Not to say like, oh, it's surprising I agree with you. I agree with you on a lot of stuff. But I just meant like that point in particular. I do think that it's something that we want to keep a close eye on. The convergence of TV and streaming. If you guys have, been following at all the whole Disney thing where like they had this big fight with Charter.
Yep.
Right. And so where it netted out is something that could potentially set a precedent and have a really big impact on what's going to happen going forward. I don't know all the specifics of the deal. I heard that Charter won. But what,
So for people that don't know, do you have like the Cliff Notes version?
yeah, so really quickly, so Charter, this happens all the time when it comes to these basically the distributors versus the content providers. They always negotiate, how they can, every year they carry their content, there's carriage deals. And so the last, 5 years or whatever, the cable companies, they've lost audiences. And so they want to offset that by charging higher prices. And so both to consumer, but also to their network partners, who they renew and they set these deals up every year to carry their content. And so I guess Disney must have been up for renewal, and Charter tried to jack their prices up. And so there was a big dispute, and it was like a 2 or 3 week period or so where if you have Charter, you couldn't access any of Disney's content. So like ESPN, you wouldn't have.
Yes, that was. I know my husband was not happy about that one. That
Yeah,
was
so there was
true.
like a standoff for a while, and everyone was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, what's going to happen here?" And what ended up happening, just one bullet point about it, is that part of the deal was that all Charter subscribers now get Disney Plus for free, and that was a
Okay.
part of their deal.
Yeah.
And so, to your point about the converging of TV, linear TV, and Connect TV, is that going to be a trend? Are more of these cable services going to be negotiating as part of their deals with the content providers that they also get to carry their streaming service free of charge? Now, if a company like Xfinity, which I believe is owned by Comcast, which also is in the same umbrella as NBC, when you have Xfinity and you're a cable subscriber, you get Peacock automatically, and I think it's free. But what about for non-owned streaming services, right? Are they going to be, as part of the negotiation, carrying it? And then it becomes an interesting thing, right? Because you're a subscriber to cable, and you also get access to these streaming services. So it's like you have both, and it's a super easy transition to go from cable to streaming. You might not even know that you've switched over to streaming, because every TV now is a smart TV. So even that older demographic that is used to running on cable, right, or
Yeah.
watching cable, are likely to increase their amount of streaming that they watch too, and they might not even know it.
Yeah. New content, right? Because
Right.
everybody's looking for the new content.
Right.
That's crazy, guys. This has been so much fun, but we are going to get to some Q&A right now. Audience, thank you. I'd love to hear from you after this. What you thought about our new setup. And again, if you want to schedule a tour, make sure to let us know in the chat, and we'll make sure to make that happen for you guys. But we do have a couple of questions from today. So let's see. So Timothy, hi Timothy, thanks for joining us. Since you are able to target specific areas with connected TV, how have you seen this work positively within the conversion standpoint? Can anybody read the second line?
Or does it or does it more so depend on the specific industry company if CTV is right for them?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both, right? I mean, yes, as I said before, updating the geography with the CTV for my client and being able to target specifically, we did see an increase in conversions. But I think more so, tune in next time or watch our webinar next time, because we're going to talk about all the different content and creations of CTV.
So many options.
Right. So with CTV, yeah, you could be on the big screen, but it also offers interactive. And interactive's huge, especially for consumer experience, relating it to your brand. So yes, we can, but I think it's a whole, there's so much for it.
I think it's one of those things too, right? If you know your audience, right? And so for people that don't know, my background is direct marketing. You know the PII, personal identifiable information of your audience. So knowing that, getting that audience into a digital media service like, a connected TV and serving your media that way, and then being able to actually see so-and-so
Right.
got the ad.
Right.
And now they're a customer. Like, you're
That's
not going to beat
awesome.
that conversion. It's amazing.
And
So
the connected TV is also, like, creative formats has also been something that linear's never been able to do, right? With being able to do an overlay, including QR codes.
yes.
Those are new formats, pause ads, stuff like that, that enables a consumer, if the ad's super relevant for them, they have the option, in many cases, to take action, right? I guess an exception might be the Coinbase commercial from the Super Bowl in 2022 when they crashed their website by putting that really clever QR code on the screen with nothing else.
Yep.
But that just shows you that people are watching it and taking action afterwards.
Oh, 100%. QR codes are back. And as a direct mail person, seeing QR codes on the screen is like trippy. So that's awesome. So I have some more questions. And no, I did not give out my phone number, but I am going to look at this here so that I can read it. Patrick Thornton. Hi, Patrick. I just finally cut the cord this month, not missing cable at all. And I wish I did it sooner. Amen. So that was great. Thank you, Patrick. So from Crystal, let's see. Sorry, guys, little technical situation here. Good question, you guys. Have you guys actually purchased or made any engagement with a brand through a connected TV ad yet?
For myself?
Yeah. Jackie Jones.
I think so. I mean, I've seen... I'll let out. We used to do free streaming certain platforms before we full on bought into our subscriptions. But I would get some one-off ads where I was like, oh, I didn't know about this, and I would search it on my phone while just waiting for, obviously, the sports to get back on. But yes, I definitely have engaged in CTV ads.
I actually have an example which we really haven't talked about much yet, which is YouTube. And YouTube is technically a form of OTT in the more traditional sense of YouTube, right? They also have YouTube TV.
Yep.
But that's a good, that gets categorized in connected TV umbrella. If you saw that, like in the beginning, it's listed as like 9% market share, and that's because their audience is massive. But it's like the YouTube that we all know, right?
Yeah.
It's not... they're not talking about like the YouTube TV, which is gaining traction, but especially with the Sunday ticket that they just struck, which live sports is another good opportunity to discuss. But what I was going to say is that with YouTube, they have a very high frequency in some cases. And so I kept getting these ads, and it was like perfectly targeted. And it was, I'll say, it was like the brand True Classic.
Okay.
They have these like really like silly commercials where they like, it's attention grabbing, and they also just have a crazy high frequency cap. And I happened to need new shirts. And so I was like, I saw the ad so many times and I thought it was intriguing. And so I went for it. And now I continue to get ads from them and email messages and stuff. But like, different conversation, right? Is when should you cap it? When is there diminishing returns?
Exactly.
But it does work, and YouTube is one example of it. I could have been watching YouTube on the TV screen, or I could have been on my desktop. Either way, I got the message. And I keep getting them.
Yeah, and you keep getting them. So that's another thing, suppressing your current customers. Anyway, so you know what? One of the things I get all the time now is B2B. I get B2B in my home,
All the time.
Yes.
on my TV. I work from home. So, yes. Salesforce, I see you.
Constant Snapchat ad commercials.
Yeah, constantly.
Yeah.
So we do have another question. So as a business owner, how can I get started implementing this type of advertising to reach my target audience? So thanks for that question. So if you want to, start having a deeper conversation about this, we're going to be sending a recap email to everybody that registered today with resources. Thank you, Andrew. But also with contact information for Jackie Jones and myself. So we will be in touch. Thank you.
Yes.
You can also check out the Giovanni Agency website or focus-usa.com. And then Jackie and I are both on LinkedIn. So make sure to reach out to us. Okay, guys. That's 1:00. That's a wrap. Thank you guys so much for joining Coffee and Conversions again in our wonderful new setting. Thank you again, Giovanni Agency and Studio G 340 and Andrew.
It's been a delight.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. We'll definitely drag you back
Great lighting in here, by the way.
Great lighting in here. Great lighting in here. All right, guys. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.